10 men who created world-famous brands. We knew their names, however didn't know their faces. Being well-known does now not continually imply being without difficulty diagnosed through anyone. Such is the case of these guys who managed to create trend empires. We've heard their names, considered their designs, and we apprehend their logos. Still, we don't continually understand the faces of guys who are at the back of these wonderful trend brands. Wonder Castle set out to check out the lives of the guys who delivered to lifestyles the following foment trend brands, and the admirable lifestyles conditions some went through. 1. Hubert de Givenchy. This French clothier left his household in 1944 and traveled from Beauvais to Paris to come to be a tailor. After working with essential designers of that time, such as Jacques Fath, Givenchy opened his very own workshop in 1952. His clean designs challenged the traditional trend patterns of the time. He grew to be a preferred fashion designer of well-known American figures like Audrey Hepburn, who would give up being his biggest and most well-known muse. Unlike some of his colleagues, he had an hobby in ready-to-wear, mass-produced, patterned clothing, launching his first men's sports activities series in 1969. It wasn't till 1995 that Givenchy retired from the trend industry. 2. Yves Saint Laurent. The French clothier determined to pass to Paris at an early age to fulfill his dream of turning into a trend designer. His ambition was once given a carry when he met Christian Dior, who employed him as his assistant and named him his successor after his death. However, later on, he was once relegated from this position, meaning him to set up his very own association with Pierre Berger. This choice was once the establishing of what we now comprehend as the Saint Laurent Empire. 3. Pierre Balmain. Balmain used to be one of the most essential pillars of trend in the 20th century. He used to be born in Savoy and after transferring to Paris to find out about structure and be part of the French army, he started working in his mother's garb workshop. In 1945, he mounted the company that we comprehend today. During the 50s, his identity grew to become higher acknowledged and he received to gown imperative figures of his time, which include Marlene Dietrich and the Queen of Thailand. In 1951, he opened a boutique in New York. Together with Dior, they grew to be essential representatives of the trend generation's new look after World War II. 4. Alexander McQueen. Alexander McQueen left his research in 1985 at simply 16 years ancient to examine how to tailor. In 1992, he graduated from a prestigious London artwork college with a trend series stimulated through Jack the Ripper. Luckily for McQueen, the editor of Vogue UK was once at the runway exhibit and sold all of his designs. Thanks to this, the designer's profession took off from there. In the 1990s, he won a super popularity and started revolutionizing fashion. He used to be a chief clothier of Givenchy and dedicated himself to making haute couture designs barring neglecting his very own brand. Toward the cease of 2000, he offered 51% of his company to Gucci and left his function at Givenchy to dedicate greater time to his personal trend ventures. 5. Cristobal Balenciaga. Cristobal Balenciaga started his profession in 1919, opening his very own trend workshop with the assist of one of his sisters and, likely, the aid of the Marchionista Consultores. Before long, he had made himself recognized to the aristocracy and royalty, permitting him to open up a 2D workshop and amplify his enterprise in Madrid. In 1936, he was once compelled to pass to Paris due to the Spanish Civil War. In the French capital, he modified the trend of the 1950s with his designs that situated around comfort, lines, and volume. In 1968, he determined to forego trend due to the fact the ready-to-wear motion threatened to downplay haute couture designs. 6. Ralph Lauren. After becoming a member of the U.S. Army and reading Enterprise for 2 years, the New York fashion designer made his way as a salesman at a Thai company. In 1967, he satisfied his boss to permit him to begin his personal garb line. And so he started making men's garb beneath the Polo brand. In 1971, he started designing women's clothing. With each gender apparel specialties, the fashion designer received the danger to make costumes for the 1974 movie Manufacturing of the Great Gatsby. Since then, his company has taken flight to the degree we comprehend today. 7. Louis Vuitton. Louis left his domestic at 13 in Annecy to go to Paris. After a lengthy journey, he arrived in the French capital in 1837. At the age of 16, once there, he managed to end up an apprentice to a fieldmaker and packer. in the end turning into an specialist in the practice. His renown used to be such that, in 1852, Napoleon III's spouse employed him as their non-public box-maker and packer, gaining recognition amongst the top classification of the time. In 1854, he opened his very own workshop collectively with his wife. Over time, his commercial enterprise grew and he commenced checking out new styles. His repute was once so outstanding that he even created designs for these past French royalty, like Ismail Pasha, an Egyptian viceroy. Even though his commercial enterprise suffered due to social and political problems, the fashion designer in no way gave up till his demise at age 70. 8. Gianni Versace. Having helped his mom make garments as a child, he hooked up his first boutique in 1978 in Milan, notwithstanding earlier having studied architecture. Recognized for his colorful designs and special way of appreciation post-pop, he dressed stars like Madonna, Michael Jackson, Paul McCartney, Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, and royalty like Lady Di. Through his work, he set up a hyperlink between exhibit enterprise and fashion. After his sudden death, humans thinking the company would collapse. However, his sister Donatella knew how to continue her brother's work and the company has persisted to thrive. 9. Calvin Klein. The well-known American fashion designer attended the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan and matriculated at New York's Fashion Institute of Technology. Soon afterward, in 1968, he created a company with his very own title that grew to become recognized for its minimalist coats and garments. However, what clearly struck the public used to be his provocative underclothes designs, one of the company's fundamental sources of earnings to date. Also, he was once the first clothier to introduce a unisex perfume, CK1, and branded denims to the frequent market. In mid-December 2002, he bought his business enterprise to Philips Van Heusen. 10. Christian Dior. The influential French trend designer, Christian Dior, was once born into a bourgeois household in France. After analyzing political science in college, he left his research to go into fashion. He started out through sketching for the well-known dressmaker Robert Piguet. Then, in 1946, he opened up his personal stitching residence in Paris. He was once recognized for his New Look movement, a female fashion that stood out for its designs with grew to become shoulders, slim waists, and extensive skirts that had been 20 centimeters from the floor. Did you already be aware of the records or face of any of these designers? Who else would you add to this list?